I didn't lose my temper when Howard Campbell slid that manila folder across his desk and said, "Steve, we're putting the VP promotion on hold." Just like that. No eye contact, no explanation, like he was telling me the coffee machine was broken. What he didn't know was that I'd finally hit my limit. After 18 years of carrying this company on my back, I was done playing their games. My name's Steven Peterson, I'm 49 years old, and this is the story of how I learned that loyalty only works when it goes both ways. Look, I'm not the kind of guy who makes waves. Never have been. I spent 6 years in the Army before this. Learned to follow orders and take care of my people. When I got out in '98, I figured the corporate world worked the same way. Do your job, do it well, look out for your team, and leadership takes care of you. Boy, was I wrong about that last part. I started at Cornerstone Construction Group when they were still small time, mostly doing city contracts and some private commercial work around Dallas. 18 years later, they're pulling in $50 million a year in infrastructure projects, and I built most of that growth. Highway expansions, bridge repairs, emergency response when storms hit. You name it, I've coordinated it. Here's what I actually did for them. In 2019, when that ice storm hit Dallas and shut down half the city, I had crews working around the clock to keep I-35 and the major arteries open. Saved them about $1.2 million in penalty fees from the state. When Hurricane Harvey flooded Houston, they sent me down there to coordinate emergency bridge repairs. Got the job done 3 weeks ahead of schedule while other contractors were still arguing about overtime rates. I know every foreman in the DFW area. I know which suppliers deliver on time and which ones you can't trust. When there's a crisis at 2 a.m., nobody calls Howard Campbell. They call me. And I fix it. The thing is, Howard always took credit for my work. He'd roll into the client meetings after I'd already solved the problems, shake hands, and act like he was the genius who kept everything running smooth. Meanwhile, I'm the one who's been working 14-hour days and missing my kids' baseball games to make him look good. Speaking of my kids, that's part of what makes this whole mess so personal. My son Jason just started his sophomore year at UT, and that's not cheap. My daughter Amy's a junior in high school, already talking about where she wants to apply for college. My wife Linda's been great about it all, but I can see the worry in her eyes when we're looking at the bills. College isn't getting any cheaper, and I'm 49 years old. This VP promotion wasn't just about respect anymore. It was about securing my family's future. For the past 3 years, Howard kept telling me the promotion was almost ready. Budget approvals, board meetings, corporate restructuring, always some excuse. But he'd pat me on the shoulder and say, "Don't worry, Steve. You're next in line. Just be patient." Patient. I'd been patient for 3 years while doing VP-level work for a manager's salary. Patient while training new hires who made more money than me because they had fancy degrees and no real-world experience. Patient while Howard's son-in-law Greg got fast-tracked into senior management after 18 months on the job. Yeah, Greg Campbell. Fresh out of business school, never swung a hammer in his life, but somehow he's director of strategic initiatives or some made-up title like that. Kid couldn't manage a grocery list, let alone a construction project, but he's family. And that's all that matters at Cornerstone. The meeting that changed everything happened on a Tuesday afternoon in October. Howard's secretary called me around 2 p.m. and said he wanted to see me at 3:30 for my annual review and career discussion. I figured this was finally it. After 18 years, I was going to get the recognition I'd earned. I put on my good shirt, grabbed the folder with all my project summaries and cost savings reports, and walked into his office ready to shake hands on the promotion we'd been talking about for years. Howard was shuffling papers when I walked in, acting busy. You know how some people do that fake important thing where they make you wait while they finish urgent tasks? That was Howard. Always had to be the most important guy in the room. "Sit down, Steve," he said without looking up. "Got some things to discuss." I sat down, put my folder on his desk, and waited. Finally, he leaned back in his chair and gave me that look. You know the one. The look your boss gives you when they're about to deliver bad news but want to act like it's no big deal. "Steve, I'm going to be straight with you," he said. "The board decided to hold off on the VP expansion for now. Budget constraints, market uncertainty. You know how it is." I just stared at him. Budget constraints? This is the same company that spent $80,000 on new furniture for the executive offices last month. The same company that's been posting record profits for 3 straight years. "Howard," I said, keeping my voice level, "we talked about this promotion for months. The paperwork was supposed to be done weeks ago." He shrugged. Actually shrugged, like we were talking about the weather. Things change, Steve. Economy's unpredictable. Board's being cautious. What about the salary adjustment? I asked. I'm already doing the VP work. Shouldn't compensation match responsibilities? That's when he looked away. Started shuffling those papers again. Company policy is to keep pay aligned with titles. Once the VP position opens up, you'll be the first candidate. First candidate. Not even a guarantee anymore, just first candidate. I sat there for a minute letting it sink in. 18 years. 18 years of loyalty, of making this guy look good, of missing family dinners and weekend plans to keep his projects on track. And this was my reward. When do you think that might be? I asked. Hard to say. Maybe next year, maybe longer. Depends on market conditions. Next year, or maybe longer. Translation, never. That's when I realized something. Howard wasn't planning to promote me. Ever. He was planning to keep me exactly where I was, doing VP work for manager pay until I retired or dropped dead from overwork. Why would he change anything? He had the perfect setup, all the results with none of the cost. I picked up my folder, stood up, and looked him in the eye. Thanks for letting me know, I said. My voice was calm, but something had shifted inside me, something permanent. Don't worry about it, Steve, he said, already turning back to his papers. You're valuable right where you are. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. The same line every boss gives when they want to keep taking advantage of you. I walked out of that office and closed the door behind me. The hallway looked the same as always, but something felt different, like I was seeing the place clearly for the first time in years. When I got back to my desk, I didn't open any project files. Instead, I opened my email and started scrolling through messages I'd been ignoring for months. Recruiters, headhunters, former colleagues who'd moved on to better opportunities. Messages that all said pretty much the same thing. You're too good for Cornerstone. Come work somewhere that appreciates talent. I'd always deleted those emails before. Loyalty, you know. But sitting there, staring at my computer screen, I started thinking maybe loyalty was a two-way street, and Cornerstone had been driving the wrong direction for years. There was one email that caught my attention right away. The subject line was simple: coffee and a conversation, from Nicholas Torres, CEO of Summit Infrastructure Solutions. I knew the name. Everyone in Dallas construction knows Summit. They started out as a small outfit doing residential work, but in the last 5 years they'd grown into serious competition for the big players. Government contracts, major commercial projects, even some of the highway work that used to go automatically to companies like Cornerstone. Word around town was that Torres ran things different, paid well, treated people right, actually listened to his project managers instead of just telling them what to do. I clicked on the email. Steve, I've been watching your work at Cornerstone for years. Your team's safety record and on-time delivery numbers are the best in the region. If you're ever interested in a conversation about leadership opportunities, I'd love to buy you coffee. No pressure, just curious about your thoughts on where the industry is heading. No pressure, right? But the thing was, it didn't feel like a sales pitch. Most recruiters send you these generic messages about exciting opportunities without even knowing what you do. This guy had done his homework. I stared at that email for about 10 minutes, then closed my laptop and went home. Linda was in the kitchen making dinner, and the kids were doing homework at the table. Normal Tuesday night stuff. But I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. How was your meeting with Howard? Linda asked without looking up from the stove. About what I expected, I said, which was true in a way. She gave me that look. 22 years of marriage, and she can read me like a road map. That bad, huh? Amy looked up from her algebra homework. Dad, are you okay? That's when it hit me. My daughter shouldn't have to worry about whether her father's okay because of some corporate politics. She should be focused on being 17 and figuring out which colleges she wants to visit next year. Everything's fine, kiddo, I said. Just work stuff. But it wasn't fine, and Linda knew it. After the kids went to bed, we sat on the back porch with a couple of beers, and I told her what really happened in Howard's office. 18 years, she said when I finished. 18 years, and they won't even give you the title for work you're already doing. That's about the size of it. She was quiet for a minute, looking out at our backyard. We'd bought this house 12 years ago, right after Amy was born. 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage, good school district, the American dream, Texas style. But dreams cost money, and money requires a steady paycheck with room for growth. You know what I think? Linda said finally. I think you should call that Torres guy. I looked at her. You sure about that? Steve, you've been loyal to Cornerstone longer than we've lived in this house. But loyalty's got to work both ways. If they don't see your value after 18 years, maybe it's time to find someone who does. The next morning, I responded to Nicholas Torres's email. Mr. Torres, I appreciate you reaching out. I'd be interested in that conversation. When works for you? He replied within an hour. How about Saturday morning? There's a diner called Martha's on Elm Street that makes great coffee and keeps the noise down. 9 a.m. work? Saturday morning, I drove over to Martha's Diner. It's one of those old-school places where construction workers grab breakfast before heading to job sites. Red vinyl booths, coffee that could strip paint, and waitresses who've seen it all. Perfect place for a quiet conversation. Torres was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of coffee and what looked like project blueprints spread out on the table. He stood up when he saw me coming. Average height, maybe mid-40s, with the kind of firm handshake that tells you he's spent time on actual job sites instead of just boardrooms. Steve Peterson, I said. Nick Torres. Thanks for coming out on a Saturday. We shook hands and sat down. Nick folded up the blueprints and set them aside. Hope you don't mind if I skip the small talk, he said. I've got a problem, and I think you might be the solution. I liked him already. Straight shooter. Summit's growing faster than we can manage, he continued. We've got 3 major highway contracts starting in the next 6 months, plus emergency response agreements with 4 counties. I need someone who can coordinate all that without everything falling apart. Sounds familiar? I said. He smiled. I bet it does. Look, I'll be honest with you. I've been trying to hire you away from Cornerstone for 2 years, but I figured you were happy there. Then I heard through the grapevine that things might not be as rosy as they seem. Grapevine talks, huh? Construction's a small world, especially around Dallas. People notice when good project managers get passed over for promotions they've earned. I sipped my coffee and looked around the diner. A couple of guys in hard hats were talking about a job site problem. Familiar conversation. Familiar world. What exactly are you offering? I asked. Nick leaned forward. VP of Regional Operations. Full authority over project coordination, team building, and client relationships. Starting salary is $140,000, plus performance bonuses that actually mean something. Health benefits for your whole family, and here's the kicker. Profit sharing. When Summit does well, you do well. I nearly choked on my coffee. $140,000 was almost $40,000 more than I was making at Cornerstone. And profit sharing? Howard Campbell wouldn't share a sandwich, let alone company profits. There's more, Nick said. I know you've got kids heading to college soon. Summit has an education assistance program. We'll cover up to $10,000 a year in tuition costs for employees' children. Now he really had my attention. Jason's sophomore year was costing us almost $25,000 between tuition, room, and board. Amy's college fund was solid, but not solid enough for 4 years at a good university. Why me? I asked. You could hire someone younger, cheaper. Because I don't want someone younger and cheaper, Nick said. I want someone who knows what he's doing. Someone who can handle a crisis at 2 a.m. without waking me up. Someone whose team actually respects him instead of just tolerating him because he's the boss. He pulled out a single sheet of paper and slid it across the table. This is our safety record for the past 3 years, he said. We're good, but we could be better. Your teams at Cornerstone have the best safety numbers in Texas. That's not luck, that's leadership. I looked at the numbers. Summit was definitely good, but Nick was right. They could improve. And I knew I could help them get there. What's the timeline on this? I asked. I'd like to have someone in place within 2 weeks, Nick said. But for the right person, I'm flexible. He stood up and left a $10 bill on the table for coffee that probably cost $3. Think about it over the weekend. Call me Monday if you're interested. If not, no hard feelings, and this conversation never happened. I drove home thinking about Linda's words. Loyalty's got to work both ways. After 18 years, I'd learned that lesson the hard way. That night, I sat in my home office looking at our family budget spreadsheet. Jason's college costs, Amy's upcoming applications, the mortgage, Linda's car payment, All the regular expenses of a middle-class family trying to stay middle-class in an economy that kept making it harder. Then I thought about Howard Campbell's shrug when he told me to keep doing what I was doing. The way he looked right through me like I was part of the furniture. I picked up my phone and dialed Nick Torres's number. "Nick, it's Steve Peterson. If that offer's still good, I'm interested." "It's good," he said. "Welcome to Summit Infrastructure." Monday morning, I walked into Cornerstone Construction with my resignation letter in my jacket pocket. 2 weeks' notice, professional and clean. No point burning bridges, even when those bridges were already falling apart. I had a normal morning, checked on the Henderson Bridge project, reviewed material delivery schedules for the I-20 expansion, answered a few emails from subcontractors. Just another day at the office, except it was going to be my last normal day for a while. Around 10 a.m., I knocked on Howard's door. "Come in," he called out. I walked in and sat down without waiting for an invitation. Howard looked up from his computer screen, probably checking his golf scores or something equally important. "What's up, Steve?" I pulled out the letter and placed it on his desk. "I'm submitting my resignation, Howard. 2 weeks' notice, standard procedure." He stared at the letter like it was written in a foreign language. Then he looked up at me with this confused expression, like I'd just told him his car had been towed. "Resignation? Steve, what are you talking about?" "I'm taking a position with Summit Infrastructure, VP of Regional Operations. My last day here will be Friday, November 10th. Now he was paying attention. Howard picked up the letter and read it, his face getting redder with each line. "Summit Infrastructure? They're our competition, Steve. They're the company that offered me what you wouldn't," I said. "Respect, proper compensation, and a chance to actually lead instead of just manage." "Steve, let's not be hasty here," he said, putting on that fake concerned voice he used when clients threatened to take their business elsewhere. "If this is about the VP promotion, we can work something out. Maybe accelerate the timeline. Howard, you told me Tuesday that timeline might be next year or longer. Today's Monday, and suddenly you can accelerate it?" He shifted in his chair. "Look, I'll be honest. The board's been conservative about expansion, but if it means keeping me here to do VP work for manager pay while your son-in-law gets fast-tracked to senior management." That hit home. Howard's face went from red to pale pretty quick. "Greg's situation is different," he said. "Yeah, it is different. He's family. I'm just the guy who's kept this company profitable for 18 years. Howard leaned forward, trying to look sincere. "Steve, you're valuable to Cornerstone, more valuable than you realize. What's Summit offering that we can't match? $140,000 to start, plus profit sharing and education assistance for my kids." Howard blinked. "140? That's a significant increase. It's what the job's worth, Howard. It's what I should have been making here 3 years ago." He was quiet for a minute, probably calculating how much it would cost to match Summit's offer versus how much it would cost to replace me. I could see the wheels turning. "Give me 48 hours, he said finally. "Let me talk to the board, see what we can do." I stood up. "Howard, I already gave Summit my answer. The decision's made. Steve, don't do this. We're like family here." Family. That was rich, coming from the guy who'd been stringing me along for 3 years while promoting his actual family. "Family doesn't lie to each other for years," I said. "Family doesn't take advantage of loyalty. And family sure doesn't tell someone to keep doing what they're doing after breaking a promise." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Howard, you might want to start looking for replacements. I'm not the only one who's been unhappy around here." That afternoon, word got around the office pretty quick. Construction's a small world, and news travels fast. By 2 p.m., 3 of my key people had stopped by my office. Brian Miller came in first. Brian's been my go-to coordinator for 8 years, knows every supplier and subcontractor in Texas, the kind of guy who can solve problems before they become crises. "Is it true?" he asked, closing the door behind him. "Yeah, it's true. 2 weeks' notice as of this morning." He sat down in the chair across from my desk. "Where you headed?" "Summit Infrastructure, VP of Regional Operations." Brian nodded slowly. "They're good people. I've worked with some of their crews on joint projects, professional outfit. Brian, you know I can't recruit you while I'm still employed here. That wouldn't be right." "I know," he said, "but hypothetically speaking, if someone were to leave Cornerstone and go to work for Summit, Would there be opportunities for experienced coordinators? Hypothetically speaking, I'd imagine Summit's always looking for good people. Good to know, Brian said, standing up. Congratulations, Steve. It's about time someone recognized what you're worth. 20 minutes later, Jennifer Walsh knocked on my door. Jennifer's our best project engineer, graduated from Texas A&M with honors, worked her way up from assistant to senior engineer in 6 years. Smart as hell and twice as hardworking, but Howard and his crew never gave her the credit she deserved. So, you're really leaving? She asked. Friday's my last day. Can't say I blame you. I've been watching them pass you over for years while taking credit for your work. Jennifer sat down and looked around my office. You know, I've been thinking about making a change myself. This place doesn't seem to value engineering excellence the way it should. Where would you go? I asked, though I had a feeling I knew the answer. Well, if Summit Infrastructure is hiring VPs, they probably need good engineers too. I'd imagine they do. I might give them a call this week. Just to see what opportunities are out there. Anthony Davis was the third visitor. Anthony runs our safety and compliance program, and he's the reason Cornerstone has the best safety record in North Texas. Former Marine, meticulous about details, doesn't tolerate shortcuts that put workers at risk. Heard the news, he said, settling into the chair. About time. Thanks, Anthony. Question for you. Summit's safety record is good, but not great. They could use someone with experience upgrading their protocols. I'd agree with that assessment. Think they'd be interested in hiring a safety coordinator with 12 years of experience and a perfect inspection record? I think any smart company would be interested in that. Anthony smiled. I'll keep that in mind. By Wednesday, the rumors were flying around the office. Howard was making the rounds, trying to do damage control, but you could see the panic in his eyes. He'd never had to run operations without me backing him up, and I think it was finally hitting him what that meant. Thursday morning, Brian Miller walked into Howard's office and submitted his resignation. 2 hours later, Jennifer Walsh did the same thing. By lunch, Anthony Davis had followed suit. 3 of my key people, gone in one morning. Howard called an emergency meeting with his senior staff, but the damage was already done. Word was getting out that the backbone of Cornerstone's operations was walking out the door. My phone started ringing around 2 p.m. Howard, of course. Steve, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. What's getting out of hand, Howard? You know damn well what I'm talking about. 3 more resignations today. All your people. They're not my people, Howard. They're professionals who make their own decisions about where they want to work. This is sabotage. No, this is what happens when you treat good employees badly for years. They find places that treat them better. Steve, please, can we meet? Can we work something out? I looked around my office, already half-packed, 18 years of work fitting into a few cardboard boxes. Howard, I already worked something out. With Summit Infrastructure. My last day is tomorrow, just like I told you Monday. The board authorized me to offer you $135,000 plus benefits. VP title, effective immediately. That's a generous offer, I said, but I already accepted another position. Steve, Howard, you had 18 years to make that offer. You had 3 years after I started asking about promotion. You even had Tuesday afternoon when I was sitting right there in your office, ready to stay if you just treated me fairly. I hung up the phone and went back to packing. Friday morning, I cleaned out my desk, said goodbye to the people who were staying, and walked out of Cornerstone Construction for the last time. In my rearview mirror, I could see the building getting smaller, but I wasn't looking back with regret. I was looking forward to Monday morning at Summit Infrastructure. What I didn't know yet was that Howard Campbell's troubles were just getting started. Monday morning at Summit Infrastructure felt like stepping into a different world. Clean offices, updated equipment, and people who actually seemed happy to be there. Nick Torres met me at the front desk with a cup of coffee and a genuine smile. Welcome to Summit, Steve. Ready to get started? My office was twice the size of what I'd had at Cornerstone, with windows that actually opened and a view of downtown Dallas. But the best part was the whiteboard on the wall, completely blank, waiting for me to start building something new. The first week was mostly meetings and getting familiar with Summit's current projects. They had good systems, but I could see places where my experience would make a difference. Better coordination between teams, improved supplier relationships, more efficient scheduling, the kind of improvements that save time and money without cutting corners on safety. By the end of my second week, Brian Miller, Jennifer Walsh, and Anthony Davis had all started at Summit. Nick didn't ask any questions about the timing. He just welcomed them aboard and put them to work. That's the kind of leadership that builds loyalty instead of demanding it. Meanwhile, things were falling apart at Cornerstone faster than I'd expected. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks after I left. A friend who still worked there told me they'd missed a critical delivery deadline on the Henderson Bridge project because nobody knew which supplier to call when the original concrete shipment showed up wrong. Simple problem that I could have solved with a phone call, but the new guy Howard hired to replace me didn't have those relationships. That delay cost Cornerstone $25,000 in penalties. 2 weeks later, it was the I-20 expansion. Storm damage required emergency repairs, but without Anthony's safety protocols and Brian's coordination experience, they couldn't mobilize crews fast enough. The state pulled them off that contract and gave it to a competitor, Summit Infrastructure. Nick called me into his office that Thursday. "Steve, the state just offered us the I-20 emergency repair contract. It's the one Cornerstone lost. You know that project better than anyone. Think we can handle it?" "We can handle it," I said. "Give me Jennifer for engineering support and Anthony to manage safety compliance. We'll have crews working by Monday." We finished that emergency repair 5 days ahead of schedule and $30,000 under budget. The state project manager told Nick it was the smoothest emergency response he'd seen in 15 years. Word travels fast in construction. Within a month, Summit had 3 new contracts from clients who'd gotten frustrated with Cornerstone's declining service. Each one was a project I'd worked on before, clients who trusted me enough to follow me to a new company. Howard started calling again around that time. "Steve, I need to ask you something," he said when I answered the phone. "Are you actively recruiting my employees?" "Howard, I'm not recruiting anybody. But if people call me asking about opportunities at Summit, I'm not going to lie to them about what it's like to work here. 7 people have resigned in the past month. 7, all citing better opportunities as their reason. Maybe that should tell you something about the opportunities you're providing. This isn't sustainable, Steve. Cornerstone's been part of Dallas construction for 25 years. And it could be part of it for another 25 years if you started treating your employees like assets instead of expenses." There was a long pause. "What would it take to get you back?" I looked around my office at Summit. Project schedules running on time, safety reports with 0 incidents, team meetings where people actually contributed ideas instead of just nodding along with whatever the boss said. "Howard, there's no amount of money that would bring me back to Cornerstone. This isn't about salary anymore. It's about respect. Steve, you had 18 years to figure out that respect matters. Now it's too late." 6 months after I started at Summit, the industry magazine Texas Construction Today ran a feature story about our emergency response capabilities. The article mentioned me by name as the operational mastermind behind Summit's rapid growth in the public infrastructure sector. Linda cut out the article and put it on the refrigerator next to Amy's honor roll certificate and Jason's Dean's List letter from UT Family Achievements, all in a row. The same week that article came out, I got a call from Mike Rodriguez, who'd been Cornerstone's lead scheduler for 12 years. "Steve, I hate to bother you, but I'm thinking about making a change. Things are pretty chaotic here since you left. Howard's hired 4 different operations managers in 6 months, and none of them last more than 8 weeks. What happened to the latest one? Quit yesterday. Said he couldn't manage projects without proper support systems, whatever that means." I knew exactly what it meant. Operations management isn't just about reading schedules and making phone calls. It's about relationships, institutional knowledge, and understanding how all the pieces fit together. You can't hire that off the street. Summit's always looking for experienced schedulers, I told Mike. "If you're interested, send me your resume." Mike Rodriguez started at Summit 2 weeks later. A year after I left Cornerstone, Nick Torres promoted me to Senior VP with a 15% raise and expanded responsibilities for all Texas operations. The promotion came with a corner office and a parking space with my name on it. More importantly, it came with the respect I'd been earning for 18 years but never receiving. That same month, I heard through industry contacts that Cornerstone had lost 3 major contracts and laid off 20% of their workforce. Howard Campbell was trying to sell the company to a larger firm, but the due diligence process kept revealing problems with their operational capabilities. I didn't feel sorry for Howard. I felt sorry for the good people still working there who were paying the price for his mismanagement. 2 years later, Amy got accepted to Texas Tech with a partial academic scholarship. Between the scholarship and Summit's education assistance program, her first year was going to cost us less than $8,000 out of pocket. Jason was thriving at UT, planning to study civil engineering and maybe join the family business someday. Linda and I were sitting on the back porch one evening, watching the sunset and talking about Amy's college plans when she asked me if I ever regretted leaving Cornerstone. Not for a second, I said. Best decision I ever made. Even though it took 18 years, especially because it took 18 years, if I'd left earlier, I might have wondered if I'd given up too easily. Now I know I gave them every chance to do the right thing. And Howard? I thought about that. Howard Campbell, who used to sit in boardrooms taking credit for my work, who strung me along for 3 years with empty promises, who valued loyalty until it cost him something. Howard learned an expensive lesson about the difference between managing people and leading them. Problem is, he learned it too late to save his company. The construction industry in Dallas is competitive but small. Everyone knows everyone, and reputations matter. Summit Infrastructure has a reputation for treating people right, delivering quality work, and standing behind their commitments. That reputation starts at the top with Nick Torres, but it's maintained by people like me, Brian, Jennifer, Anthony, and Mike. Experienced professionals who know what good leadership looks like because we've seen the alternative. Cornerstone Construction still exists, but barely. They do mostly small commercial projects now, nothing like the major infrastructure work they used to handle. Howard's still there, but he's not the same confident executive he used to be. Hard to be confident when you've lost most of your best people and half your business because you couldn't figure out that loyalty has to go both ways. As for me, I learned something important at 49 years old. Your career isn't about the years you put into a company. It's about finding a place that puts something back into you. Respect, opportunity, fair compensation, and the chance to grow instead of just survive. If you're reading this and recognizing your own situation, here's my advice. Document every promise they make. Pay attention to actions, not words, and understand that when a company keeps you waiting for someday, what they're really saying is they don't see you in their future. Don't wait for someone else to choose you. Choose yourself. The life you deserve is out there. Sometimes you just have to have the courage to go find it. Sometimes the biggest risk isn't leaving a bad situation. It's staying in one that slowly kills your spirit while convincing yourself that loyalty will eventually pay off.